One more thing.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the very first video interview on One More Thing. I'm joined by a very, very special guest. She's worked with a whole cornucopia of amazing artists, from Nookie to D Mines to Molly Collins and loads more. And it's just starting a really, really exciting new chapter now. More as a solo artist, really. It's Ruth Royall. How are you doing, Ruth?
Hello, I'm very good. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. No, my pleasure. My pleasure. I couldn't think of a better person to start this video series with. And it seems like I've caught you at a really, really good time, haven't I?
I think so. Yeah, it seems like a very exciting time at the moment with what's going on. It's good.
Brilliant, brilliant. So this kind of all starts then, really. I mean, everything is just ongoing. It's just every time I speak to you, it's another level up, really. But the new single now, Light the Fuse, definitely feels like another level up yet again. So tell us about the single, first of all.
So this is my second ever solo single, and it's the first time that I've put anything out that's got my own production on it, which is great. So this was kind of, I think the intention behind wanting to do this was to really find my own space creatively and be able to express myself musically. I've got so many ideas in my head all the time. I just really wanted to start putting it out there, under my own name, like as a solo artist. So I've been working on stuff for quite a while, and my production journey's been going on for a while, and just writing until I find something that feels really right. And this song, it was one of those songs that I wrote really quickly, which I think is always a great sign. I call it a word vomit song. And when you just kind of just comes out and then feels really natural, and that was one of those songs, and then we decided to put it out.
Wow, brilliant. So I want to know what lights your fuse.
What lights my fuse? Well, I think it changes like every week. But at the moment, the thing that I'm really excited about is DJing, mixing, live shows. Like, I'm getting really into putting together a mix, blends, just creating an experience, like a journey. I really like to create a set that's got lots of dynamic in it, because I'm singing with live vocals, that it's got to be a story. It can't just be like bam bam bam, banger banger banger. It's got to ebb and flow, and and I think that's kind of what I'm a bit obsessed with at the moment.
Wow, go on. That's brilliant. I mean, that's it. This marks the start of a whole new, really, like an evolution, really, for kind of for vocalists within electronic music. And it's so amazing to see you and many others as well, kind of stepping away from, I guess, the traditional role of being a featured artist or just being a songwriter. There's no just about it. Being a songwriter is a dark art in itself, but actually kind of performing it, presenting it as a DJ and production. This is the start of a kind of a new era, really, isn't it? And a new art form in a way.
Yeah, definitely. And it's amazing to see that most of the artists that are doing that at the moment are female. And I don't know why that is, but it just seems to be loads of top liners have just sort of taken it into their own hands and gone, you know what, it's time that I'm going to do my thing. And it's really exciting. It's really kind of, I feel like I'm part of a whole movement at the moment. And just this kind of like you say, evolution in the scene, and I feel very honored to kind of be part of that. And I really, really respect the other artists that are doing it at the moment, and I'm learning loads from them. And it's a real community, so it just feels like a great time to be part of the scene.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there's so many great examples. Like recently, I spoke to Tali, who, kind of, she's been flying the flag for generations before, for decades, but she's only just released her first produced album, and, has spoken to me about kind of getting over her lack of confidence in kind of presenting her drum and bass productions to the world. And then on the flip side, then you've got newcomers like A Little Sound. There's just so many examples, and it's great to see that everybody's really supportive. And I think that's what's made it even more excited and even more of an explosive new kind of way of presenting this music and way of exploring this music as well, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I would like I'm actually on that album with Tali, and
of course you are. Yeah.
I reached out to her because I wanted some advice, and I was a huge fan of hers, and just thought she was like this incredible otherworldly being of drum and bass. And I remember getting in touch and being like, oh, I'm a huge fan. I think you're amazing. I'd love to pick your brain sometime, or like, get some mentoring. And she got straight back to me. She was like, what? This is crazy. You're like, or, just was really complimentary. And she was like, anytime you want any advice, like, we are in this together. Like, I've got your back. And off the back of that, she got in touch with me and was like, would you like to sing on one of my tunes? And I was like, oh my God, yes. So it was nice, and it just says, it's just that community, isn't it? It's just that everybody's supporting each other. And I think because it's predominantly a female scene in terms of like the live singing and DJing thing, it seems to be predominantly women doing it at the moment, because it's been quite difficult for all of us, I think, just in general, with representation. And it, that whole if you can see it you can be it thing, like I never had that when I started out in music. I never saw women doing electronic music. I never saw women doing dance music that I really was into. And so I didn't do it until I was a lot older. And I think because we've had that experience, everyone's backing each other up, and everyone's like, we've got this, we can create this new wave of artists that are really going to bring up the next generation and say, yeah, it's possible, I can do it, so you can do it. So,
yeah, definitely. And I've spoken to DRS for years about this glass ceiling for MCs, and I think the same is applied for vocalists. The credit always falls off. When people talk about the tune, they talk about the producer and they never talk about the artist. And I think that side of representation as well, that kind of really shining the light on the vocalist. And if you look at Inja, I think he was on tour in New Zealand and his DJ couldn't come because of COVID, so he's like, okay, I'm going to step behind the decks, then I'm going to do it. DRS has taken it to mad levels, but I think there is that kind of like, right, okay, the recent times that we've been through, and that kind of like adapting really, because I know that with performing, you've been in at the deep end, haven't you? The minute you revealed yourself as a performer as well, as a DJ, you've done some crazy gigs. Really
go. Yeah.
I mean, tell us about some of your live experiences, because I know like one of your really early gigs was like it was warming up for Sub Focus, wasn't it?
Oh my God, what? It was so crazy. It was like, I think, well, if my first I think no, it was my second gig. My first proper gig was at the Pickle Factory for Solvent, and that felt like a family atmosphere. It, they're really dear friends of mine, all the Solvent gang and like the hospital crew. So it was like safe, and if I messed up, it was going to be all right. And I was going on, like, I think it was like after mic drop or something like that, and he was like, "You've got this, are you okay?" And I was just like, "Yeah, I don't know what I'm doing." And then my second gig was at flipping Motion, going on before like Friction and then Sub Focus Wilkinson headliner to like 4,000 people. And that, I was just like, what the hell am I doing here? This is crazy. And just sort, my manager just chucks me out on the stage, and I'm just like, ah. And but it was great. I did mess up on the decks once, but the crowd, I was like, oh God, I've messed up, and the crowd were like, these girls down the front were going, "You've got this," and I was just like, thank you. Brilliant. And then literally, I think it must have been my fourth gig. I'm playing at Love Saves the Day, like my fourth DJing gig. I'm playing at Love Saves the Day to like 8,000 people, and Nick was late, and they were like, "Can you keep going?" And so obviously, like, the Sub Focus crowd are there, and it was just rammed, and it was amazing. It was, honestly, it was such a buzz. And I think the really cool thing was they weren't just there for Sub Focus, they were singing my songs with me, and they were like totally engaged in what I was playing, and it just felt really exciting. And it was really nice actually, because Axel Boy, who I co-produced with, was side stage, and so was a Little Sound, and they were both like, "Come on, Ruth!" And it was just like, yeah, brilliant. So it was really cool. And yeah, just totally have the bug now and just want to play all the time.
Oh, and that's amazing. So you mentioned Axel Boy, and he's been part of your production journey, hasn't he? So take us back to the start of your production journey. And was that always part of the plan? Has that always been an interest and an exploration of yours, or has it come about through this evolution, really, and these things, this life taking its own kind of twist, if you like?
It's hard to pinpoint, because I always used to make music like from a child. I remember like, you know, I was playing piano, guitar, whatever, but then I remember getting an iPad that had GarageBand on it, and so I was producing like that, but it wasn't drum and bass. It was like, I don't know what it was, like weird little synthy pop tunes, you know. And I was always interested in arrangement, so I was always interested in not just the piano and the, or the guitar and the vocals and the lyrics. It was always like, how do I make a vibe, you know, how do I experiment with sounds and create something, just sort of get what's in my head out. And so I've always done that, and I've always like written more than one part. And then kind of through the journey of, because I'm a session singer as well, so I do a lot of work for like television and things like that. So I'm pretty used to Logic and was using that anyway for my job. And so that felt quite natural to kind of like progress into building tunes. And often I would write something for a producer that I was working with, and I'd write more than just the vocals. Like, so Remedies, for instance, when Molly was like, do you have any top lines, I sent her the piano and the vocal and was like, this is kind of my idea of how it would sit. And then, you know, I redid the piano and all that kind of thing. And she was like, great, well, I'm not changing that. I'm just gonna, you know, get the beats going and get a really nice bass sound, and, you know, we'll work. And she like really honored the track, you know, which as in the songwriting of that, which was amazing. And that was actually one of my first experiences of being like, you know, this is I do more than just the top line. And so I think I started to get a lot of confidence, and also graphics gave me loads of confidence, because we were working on loads of stuff together. We still do, and we started working on a load of like synth wave, I guess you'd call it. Totally. We came up with this little duo called Violet Sun. We've never done anything with it. We need to put it out. We need to just like release it, because we've got this like whole EP of tunes, and it's like this kind of poppy, beatsy, synthy 80s style stuff. And it was a lot of my production. So I was coming in and going like, right, here's my stuff, here's my tune, here's all of the things together. And he'd be like, okay, cool. And then he'd get the kick sounding really good, and you get, you know, like we put it all through the Prophet and get, you know, really nice quality sounds. And he was teaching me loads about it. And then my work with Paper Dragon as well, that was teaching me loads. So I was constantly working with producers who were teaching me stuff, and also just being like, you're good, like keep doing this, like, you know, this is good stuff. And I remember Josh was like, you don't need me, you won't need me, you'll be fine on it. And I was like, what are you talking about? Like, no. And he was like, seriously, Ruth, you don't need me. Like, and I was just like, it was really lovely. And so eventually when I got to the point that I was like, okay, I want to start doing some solo stuff. The first thing was I did that EP with Solvent Colours. And that was the first time that I'd actually kind of written and arranged some stuff, taken it to producers, but it was way more of a collaboration on that one. And it was, you know, changing things completely to, you know, because my beat making wasn't quite there, or like the bass wasn't quite there. And this time with Axel Boy, because I work quite closely with Axel Boy, we have the same manager, John manages both of us, and I do a lot of writing for him and his stuff. And so anyway, we're super close. I'm rambling, but he came in and we were like, right, I do still need some help with like tightening up bass sounds and like getting it really, really crisp and all that sort of stuff. But he would come in and he'd be like, cool, this is how we do it. Just get the kick sounding good, like get that LFO properly. Because I was like, I want this like wobbly kind of chase and statusy bassy thing going on. And I was using a tremolo, which was like kind of getting across the idea, but it wasn't sort of doing that wave LFO thing to like really, you know, drop kick the subwoofer kind of vibe. And he was like, cool, I can hear what you're trying to do. So it took me through the LFO thing, and I was like, okay, wicked. So that's good. Yeah, that's exactly how I want it to sound. And yeah, and so then that's just the way that we've been working, and that's sort of my little routine now. So I'm like, right, here's the chat. And what's nice is I'm getting more and more. So he'll be like, cool, I only need to do this now, or I need to do this now. And he's a really good producer, because he doesn't put his own sound on it. He doesn't
Brilliant.
come in and go, oh, cool, yeah, I'll make it sound like an Axel Boy track. He doesn't do that. He comes in and goes, oh, I can see what you're trying to do here. This is what this tune needs, or this is how it needs to be sidechained to get that bounce, or, you know, all that kind of thing. So yeah,
I think
hats
there's
off.
an art to that, really, isn't there? Instead of, because it'd be so easy as a creative individual, you want to put your stamp on it. So to be able to completely quash that ego and just be purely technical and go, right, I understand what you need, and be able to do that without leaving your personality on it in a really, really weird way is an incredible art form in itself, isn't
Yeah.
it? I think.
Yeah, it is. And that's the difference between it being, you know, a Ruth Royall track and it rather than it being like a Ruth Royall, an Axel Boy tune. And also to be able to, for him to be able to step back from that and be like, you know, this is all you, baby, is great. So I'm really lucky that I've got producers like that around me. I also have the same relationship with Dom Howard, who's known as Ruxpin, who was the Submotion Orchestra
Yeah.
producer, who I am the biggest Submo fan, and they were probably one of the first acts to get me into making electronic music. And to be co-producing with Dom is like, what is going on?
Yeah, Ruxpin is one of those like unsung heroes of the game, and just a real hard-working, very talented individual. And I think Submotion Orchestra, they bridged the gap for a lot of people, didn't they?
Yeah,
Really,
100%.
and kind of ushered in, showed what bass music was capable of on that kind of really melodic songwritten scale. Obviously, other people have done it as well, but Submotion Orchestra, really, I've got goosebumps thinking about them now.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? And like the way that was a huge part of my journey, because I came from neo soul and jazz and R&B music because I was a singer, and that's, I only ever saw other singers doing that, so I was like, oh well, I should probably do that then. And but I always listened to dance music, and then to find an act like Submotion Orchestra that merged the two and made me go, oh, I can do both, you know, I can cross over into that electronic realm and it be okay, you know. And it's, yeah, it's amazing to work with him. I do kind of quite a lot of different stuff with him, and so I was really really chuffed when he said that he'd do some co-production for me.
Go on, amazing, amazing. So I'm really interested actually in, like, you know, the kind of the side stuff then is all built up to this, then like the kind of, you've mentioned television, you've mentioned neo soul and things like this. You've come from, and your day job every day for you is very, very different then, I'd imagine, depending on what needs to be done, what brief, what you're working on personally, and what briefs you've been given with other aspects of your creative life, really.
Yeah, yeah. I've worked in various guises in music since I was 14. Like I've done a lot of session work, so a lot of stuff for like video games, stuff for adverts like jingles. Like I do a lot of phone adverts.
All right.
Don't know why, but that's one of the things. But yeah, and that can be songwriting or session vocals. Some of it's voiceover work, not as much voiceover work. I tend to get more kind of like singing, songwriting stuff. Yeah, and that's kind of run through everything. And then I worked, I think before, well, actually, the reason that I got booked on the Fred V and Graphics tour was because I was a session singer, and so I was like singing for. It was really weird because I was auditioning for a backing singer job for Emily Sandé at the time, and
Wow.
then yeah, and then Fred V and Graphics came along and were like, you know, I did the audition with them, being like, oh, and then got it, and it's changed my life, you know. So it's funny how that goes, you know. Funny how, like, I don't know, like if I'd have, you know, got the Emily Sandé job before, you know, or I'd gone with that, I don't know what I'd be doing now. I don't know if I'd be doing drum and bass, you know. So
Wow.
it's crazy, isn't it? And yeah, so I've always done music, and I think one of the when I think about it and I look back and I think about it, I think, and this is why it's so important to represent for me as well, is because I didn't see women doing what I do now, and I didn't see the first woman that I really connected to and really saw doing electronic music was Imogen Heap, and I got into her in my teens, and I thought that's amazing. And I'd been a jazz singer. Like I started off singing jazz records, and like the first stuff I learned to sing was like Eva Cassidy or like Tracy Chapman or like, you know, and it was, you know, it's all beautiful music, but it didn't really turn me on. It was kind of like, yeah, I can, you know, I can make you cry with an acoustic guitar, but it wasn't like, it never got me excited. And I just kind of did it because that's what everybody my age did, and that's what all the singers did. And then when I started seeing Imogen Heap, that's when I started like playing about on the iPad and like making all these kind of beat driven stuff. And it's crazy to think, if I'd have seen me when I was like 14, 15, I'd have probably got here a lot quicker. And that's why I think it's so important to have like everyone representing in every scene, you know, like man, woman, every color, you know, LGBTQ community, you know, if you see it, you can be it. And it makes it so much easier to just to have the, what's the word? Like, just to feel like you belong, you know, and feel like you have a place there. And I just didn't think that, you know, because I was listening to drum and bass when I was like a kid. Like I've come from Stroud, where we would like follow the sound systems around the southwest. Like we were listening to all like the, you know, Pendulum was one of the first bands that I got really excited about, like when they brought out Tarantula and all that kind of thing. And I was raving from a really young age, but I was like, oh no, that's the music that I listen to. I don't make that music. And I just think if I'd have seen, I don't know, Coven, A Little Sound, like Rhea, that, you know, then at the forefront of this stuff, I'd have been like, sick, that's me. I'm gonna go, you know, doing
But
that.
do you think your journey and your sound and your output now is all the richer for all of those other inputs? There's always a worry with drum and bass, where if you're listening to drum and bass and making drum and bass, then it's that snake eating its tail. So the beauty of jungle was the fact that everybody was bringing in everything from the soul records that their mum and dad were playing them to, you know, sound system culture and all of this. And that was the beauty of it. So the beauty of your journey is that you've come from jazz, the Imogen Heap. Like I can't think of many interviews where people have cited her as an influence, and they should have done, really, because I mean she's a huge innovator and continues to be now in, you know, the kind of wider electronic realm. And I think perhaps, you know, your journey and your sound and your output is all the richer because of that scenic route that you've taken.
Yeah, I think you're right, and it's important to listen to other music, but I think finding where you belong professionally, because I think artistically we're always going to listen to whatever we can get our hands on as a musician, because you can't help it. Like you just can't help it, you know, something sounds good and makes you feel good, you go and listen to it. And you know, like before this interview I was kind of thinking, oh, you know, let's have a little go through my Spotify saves and what are the things that I get excited about. And then I went off on a massive binge of like tunes, and none of it's drum and bass, you know, it's all kind of stuff, you know, a lot of synthy kind of poppy stuff, or like Postal Service. That's another one that I was really into, that was kind of like electronic indie stuff,
Great.
you know.
Yeah.
And I don't think that it's that's ever gonna stop. But I think with the representation thing and the having a space, I think it's, you know, if I'd have felt like I could do that, I'd have probably made a beeline for it earlier, if that makes sense.
No pun intended with the beeline.
Beeline.
Yeah. But also, I mean, obviously you touched on that now. I was going to ask earlier on in the interview, but we've gone on this beautiful tangent. But I was going to ask, like, what was the first thing that really lit your fuse musically? And maybe you've already touched on it, but it sounds like you've been on a real kind of trip down memory lane to wonder, you know, to see what it was that lit your fuse to begin with. And I
Yeah,
wonder now, it could be one of so many different things.
yeah, and that I think Imogen Heap was the first time that I remember hearing electronic music and thinking that I could make it, because I'd been listening to drum and bass, you know, and like all I was listening to a lot of like the sort of like, you know, Shy Effects, like Easy Rollers, like all the, you know, the Chase and Status stuff, and like Brand New Machine. I remember that album was fucking, yeah. Am I allowed to swear? Sorry.
Oh yeah, of course, of course.
And yeah, and but I listened to it because it made me feel good. But I was like, oh, I can't make that though, you know. And then Imogen Heap, when I discovered that, and Frou Frou, her duo, I was like, oh yeah, like I could make this stuff. She's singing about stuff that I feel like. It's all very emotive and it's storytelling, and it's kind of, and that I didn't listen to that sort of drum and bass until recently. I feel like the more kind of like emotional songwriting seems to have come through more recently. Like incredible songwriters like, Charlotte Haining, and
Mm-hmm.
that she's a real storyteller, isn't she? And I wasn't listening to stuff like that when I started listening to drum and bass. So then I kind of like took a different route and went off and then discovered artists like 07, who I'm now releasing on the same label as them. Like
Wow,
they
wow,
were
cool.
another artist that they were like Submotion Orchestra for me, where
Yeah.
I was at college and I was like making, I don't know what I was making, some kind of weird jazz music stuff, acoustic thing, and just writing about feelings to melody basically. And I remember just being obsessed with 07 and Sia, and like the way that it was just, and that got me onto like Air and all of like the kind of real chilled out but electronic-y vibes, and it would just take you off in this like wash of sound and feeling. And
Mm.
I remember going to see them live in Birmingham and just crying the whole time. And yeah, and so then again to come full circle and be releasing on New State, which is their label, so it's like crazy. But yeah,
Yeah.
I just there's been so many artists. I can ramble for a long time about artists that have inspired me.
Brilliant. And you touched on New State there. What's it like working with them? Because obviously, I mean, they're also working on Congo Natty's album at the moment, and they've got a rich, rich history of covering every style and doing it really well as well. It's, they're not a cynical label in that way. You really get the impression, and having worked with with them as well as a freelancer, that they know their shit really, and they believe in the music.
Yeah,
So what's that like? Maybe in comparison with kind of, you've worked with a lot of different labels. So does it feel like a step up working with them as well?
I think it felt really right, because they were following my stuff with Paper Dragon, and they were supporting that, and they were following my stuff, and so they were always really interested, and they were always really into it, and that's really important for me. Like I want somebody to be into the thing I'm making. I'm happy to take critique, I'm happy to take direction, but like fundamentally I don't want you to change who I am as an artist. And the fact that they were into it before I'd even said I was going to work with them was a real like, yeah, okay, this feels really good. And so when we started working with them, the thing that drew me to them was the fact that they have so many different genres that they work with, and like they really know their dance music. But they're working on garage, they're working on house, they're working on these big records. And I feel like I I would want to have the opportunity to maybe make a garage EP, make some house music, make some different tempos, and I have been doing that, and to be able to kind of express that with them. And I think like the songwriting thing as well, they're treating the drum and bass like pop songs essentially. It's probably absolute blasphemy for people hearing drum and bass going what, but it kind of, they do look at it more like a song, and that's how I write all of my music, and that's how I'm writing my drum and bass music. I'm writing it like a song with a chorus and a verse, and that's just how I make it. And I don't really want to change that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And to say that, like, I absolutely love working with the drum and bass labels, and I work loads with like Hospital Shogun. I'm huge fans of theirs, and I don't actually think that they would not want to work with something that is a song. I think actually
No.
there's a real um uh been like a real shift in the drum and bass scene of going, actually, let's look at the songwriters, let's bring these songwriters forward and kind of thing. So I think it's just great timing for that sort of music. But it's really nice to also work with a label that has that eye on all of these other scenes, all of those things going on within dance music, and there is a lot going on in dance music
Yeah.
at the
Oh, it's
moment.
crazy. It's impossible to keep up. It's kind of why I specialize in a way, really, because when I worked on a magazine and had to have a knowledge and an opinion on absolutely every genre, I got fatigue. And it's only when I focused on drum and bass and then kind of expanded it in my own peripheral, my own kind of parameters of electronic music, that I've taken a lot more pleasure in it, really. But the
Yeah,
pop stuff, I think, is fascinating.
yeah,
It's something that DJ Fresh has been trying to push for years, even
yeah,
long before his number one hits. Like with Breakbeat Chaos was such a success because he was looking at major labels and how they marketed stuff and how they worked as commercial entities, and trying to bring that into drum and bass, because he could see it's like otherwise there's this glass ceiling and
yeah,
it never expands beyond. And I'm sure there are lots of purists who might be watching this, if I'm lucky enough to get any viewers, purist viewers who might have watched this, and they might be thinking, oh no, but, and there's probably, I dare say, there's a tiny bit in my gut who is a loyal junglist from the 90s, which also kind of feels like that. But there's no other way for it to develop but without kind of taking in other aspects, other influences, and looking at the pure art of songwriting, I guess, really. And it's a reflection of where drum and bass is at. It's at a really exciting stage, isn't it?
yeah, yeah, definitely, definitely. I think it is, and that there is that kind of the purest thing with drum and bass, which I think is why the scene is so special, though.
Yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah, that
because of
is, it's,
all
it's
these
a
like,
strength as well as a weakness in a way, isn't it?
yeah, it's got this kind of loyalty to it that, I mean, I've never had a response like I've had from the drum and bass scene. Like, I when I started putting out features with Josh and with like with Echo and Sidetrack and with Polo and Bryson, I've had like letters written to me about what the songs mean to them. I've had, you know, a solid fan base since I started, like people that I consider my friends now, that have just reached out to me, and they see me at gigs and they come to stuff, and they support me on every single tiny little development step. And that's the drum and bass spirit. Like, that's the drum and bass community. You find an artist you like, you connect with their music, and you keep fucking telling them until right, until, yeah. And it's
Yeah.
just, it's so magic and special. And whether you're a purist drum and bass, or whether you're into the whole kind of poppy stuff, or you just go to raves because it feels good, whatever it is, there's something magic that's really unique to the drum and bass scene, I think.
Definitely, definitely. Whenever anybody talks to me about being like having letters written to them, or kind of contact from fans, I'm always fascinated, because there's usually some really beautiful stories and some heartbreaking stories as well. I know that you've worked with Steve BC, and he's like written a song that he wrote for a funeral has been used as a song that people have walked down the aisle to. And the interpretation and the relationship that people have with the music is beautiful. Again, I'm getting little goosebumps now
Yeah,
thinking about kind of people's interpretation and the relationship that you build with music. So without, obviously, people write to you and they're confiding in you in a way, but
yeah.
what's the most touching communique you've ever had?
It gives me goosebumps thinking about it. There's been a few, and I can share them because they put them up publicly on like Twitter and things, so they obviously weren't worried about people knowing. But I had one mother who, so Remedies was about addiction, and it was about a friend of mine that was struggling with addiction, and we were, it was basically us saying, come back to us, we understand that you have these remedies, but it's because you're hurting, kind of thing, come back to us.
Mm-hmm.
And this, God, it makes me want to cry. This woman, uh she tweeted a message, and she said, thank you for writing this song. My son told me that he has an addiction problem by playing me this song, and we're now able to get him help. And
Oh,
she couldn't
wow.
tell her, and that he played her this song and was like, this is me, and he's now in recovery. And
Oh,
like,
wow. Wow.
it's incredible, isn't it? And like, message, I think that song had such an impact because of the time it came out, and people started struggling with addiction because of it being in lockdown. And there was a lot of pressure on people's mental health, and I think a lot of people turned to alcohol, drugs, whatever it was. And this song seemed to just touch a nerve with that. And I've had recovering alcoholics, like, this is their anthem, like they use it to help them get through stuff. And they, I have this guy will post like day whatever number it is, and he'll put remedies on, and it's like crazy. It's crazy that that little song that was to help me deal with something that I was experiencing with my friend is helping people. Music's very,
Wow.
very powerful. It's very powerful.
Wow, that's incredible. And you could never dream of that when you're writing that song. It's a very personal song to you, really kind of making sense and trying to put, I guess maybe walk a mile in your friend's shoes and understand why, because nobody becomes an addict out of choice.
No,
Like
no.
there are reasons, aren't there? And life, especially as you say, like the last few years has kind of led people down all kinds of dark paths, but probably light paths as well, really. What other that's an incredible story. Have you had any
Crazy, isn't it?
others on that level?
Yeah, I did. It was me and Echo and Sidetrack when we put the song out, when we put Paper Birds out. So Paper Birds, for me, it was about the end of a relationship, and it was kind of finding strength through grief. And our love was made of paper, but I made wings out of this paper, and now I can fly. It's my paper, with my paper birds. And so it's very kind of like hopeful through grief. And this guy got in touch. He actually got in touch with the boys, with Echo and Sidetrack, and he said, I don't know if you're going to see this message, but this song, my sister died, and it was like last week, or it was really recent. And he said, and this song has been helping me remember the positives about her and like work through that grief. And yeah, it's crazy. Like, and
Wow.
to think like that wasn't like both. Also, the whole I was saying about the concept of a word vomit song.
Mm.
Remedies and Paper Birds were both word vomit songs, like just blah, there we go. That's all of my feelings on, there we go, done. And there's something about that. It's very
Do
raw, and
you, I
it's
mean, I
very,
don't want to, that's such a heavy story there. But I mean, do you shape, I don't want to devalue it by saying this, but do you shape that vomit then? Or do you leave the vomit quite raw? I've never said these words in that type of order or made that type of gesture while I've done
place the
it. But
vomit into little piles.
yeah, little pretty parcels of word vomit.
Yeah, I do. I definitely uh just get it all out, get all of the stuff out. And usually it doesn't change very much. Like if it's good, it tends to just stay as it is. But yeah, we definitely go back in and we'll like tweak a little word here, or like I redid all the piano in Remedies and stuff. And but Remedies was pretty much as is. I wrote verse, chorus, and then I sent it to Molly, and she was like, "This is sick." And she repeated the first verse, and I was like, "It needs another verse," and so did a second verse at a later date. And then Paper Birds was just got it all out there. But yeah, it's there's definitely like shaping that goes on. Otherwise, you just have like a little voice note going over like over some sick beats.
But
But
this is the healing power of music. Yet another reason why songwriting should exist with drum and bass, in that type of way. Instrumental music, as beautiful as it is, it doesn't touch people in such a personal way and resonate with such personal stories and kind of situations, as well as lyrics can, really.
yeah, and I think as a songwriter, you have to be really observational, like about everything, even about your own life. Like you have to see how people are, see how people like communicate and process things. And those are the best songs, is when most of my songs, sometimes they say like I feel a thing and then I felt this thing, but usually they're like, this happens, sometimes this happens, but this happens and it's okay, or we'll figure this out, that kind of thing. And it's very healing for me. I think everyone should write a song once in their life. Like it's a great process, and you don't have to do anything with that song, just write it, and just it's very therapeutic healing process. And yeah.
Writing is in general. Writing is in general, really, I think, isn't it? And just being able to just dump all of that stuff out of your head, even if you're writing within a completely other context, getting something out. And yeah, even if you save it and you never even look at it again, there is that transmission, isn't there, of emotions in some type of way. It comes out of your fingers or out of your pencil,
Yeah.
and it does, you feel lighter.
Yeah. Yeah, you do. You do. And also it helps you spot patterns, and it helps you work out why you're feeling like something, you know, work out, helps you process it. And yeah, if you don't get it all out, even if you, like you say, just writing everything down, like the stream of thought things and stuff like that is yeah, it's a great thing. Everybody should.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to ask you, because things have gone so rapidly for you, and I last interviewed you a couple of months ago, and you were working with Nookie. Now all of this is happening, and you're playing these crazy gigs, and you're with New State and stuff like that. And I was going to ask you what keeps you grounded when things are going so fast. What keeps you grounded? But maybe writing keeps you grounded. Maybe the very art of what you do keeps you grounded, or certainly one of the things that keeps you grounded.
Definitely, yeah. I think writing keeps me grounded, but I have such good friends in my life. Like I'm really lucky. I think this has all happened while I'm a bit older. You know, I'm not 20 and doing this. I've got like such a solid foundation of friends and my partner, and you know, me and my manager are very close friends. So I have people that, because don't get me wrong, I get overwhelmed really easily. I get like a lot of self-doubt. I get a lot of like, you know, what the hell am I doing? I'm going to get imposter syndrome. Everyone's going to find out. I don't know what I'm doing. And I'm going to be told to go to my room and stop messing about, you know? You know, and when I get that, I have one of my best friends, Ree, who is a percussionist, and she plays with me quite a lot. She's like my agony aunt, you know. I call her up and I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing with my life. And she's like, you've got this, babe. And, you know, I think having that helps me so much. And I think one of the things that is important is I didn't necessarily meet my friends through the music that I'm doing now. So if I plummet and everything goes terribly wrong, that's fine, you know. So I think that's important to those relationships. And
I need that, in my life, because like music is like 24/7, trying to make, one more thing work, and everything else that I've done over the 20 years. But all my mates, they're in completely different professions. And sometimes I'll talk to them about what I do, but it's quite nice not talking about what you do and talking about something completely mundane or something silly, or going back to what you used to talk about before life goes crazy. Because music, when your life is music, it does go crazy. So
yeah,
having people who are well beyond the realms of this crazy world that we're in is
yeah,
really important as well, isn't it?
yeah, definitely. I had the other weekend, I was like just getting a bit overwhelmed with stuff, and it was like leading up to the release of like the Fuse, and everything goes on in your head of like, you know, it's gonna flop, no one's gonna listen to it, oh god, it's gonna be terrible, what was I thinking, like all this kind of thing. And you know, I don't know, all of the bad things were going on in my head, and I was like, I really need to just go and see some friends. And I'm from I grew up in Stroud, which isn't that far from Bristol. So I drove back, and I was like, I'm gonna go see some friends that I, you know, went to school with. And so they're proper old friends. But I went to I went and met them at a pub, and they were with some people that knew me as drum and bass Ruth. And so these people were like, this is Ruth Royall, she's the drum and bass lady, and da 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 da. And started talking about like she did this and she did that, and I was like, whoa, this is a bit much. And my friend Josh goes, yeah, this is my dickhead mate from school. And I was like, yes. And he was like, should we go back to mine? And I was like, yeah. And just, you know, and just had a few drinks and just chatted, and just, it was great. And that's really, really important. And like, you know, I'm not here being like, I'm so famous, like I go into a pub and everyone recognizes me. Not at all. Like most people have no idea who I am. But like sometimes it's really nice to have somebody that, you know, people that just ground you and take the mickey out of you, and you know, all of that stuff. So I'm really
Absolutely.
lucky with that.
Yeah, and it is a weird experience. Ever since hosting the awards, I get it every now and again, and people will want to ask you these questions, and they're right in your face. And we put a lot of ourselves out into the world on Instagram and on, various social media things, and you kind of forget that there are people out there who we have no idea who they are, And then they said, I had it at Boomtown, and someone came up who's one of my Patreons. It was like, wow, okay, and these things are really strange, but we're putting ourselves out into the world. So what else do you expect? But when you're in that situation, especially in that, when you're at a level that you're at where people within our world definitely do know who Ruth Royall is. So like if you're in a club or a festival or in that type of context, people are going to recognize you, and people are going to come up to you, and they're going to say loads of stuff and gas you up completely. But it's overwhelming as hell, isn't it? It's really strange experience.
It is, but it's, it's great. And I think when you're at a rave and a festival, like, you're kind of ready and you're like, yeah, come on, bring it on. Like, you want to meet everyone and you want to like just say thanks and all that kind of thing. But I think when you're going home to see your friends and then you just walk into a pub and you're like, oh God, so it's time and place, I think, for that sort of stuff.
Definitely.
I definitely wouldn't want to be like, Angelina Jolie or like fucking, Lady Gaga or something. No, thank you.
Yeah. Just out doing your shopping or doing something really, really mundane and having people up in your grill. Cool. So talking of time and place, like what comes next now after Light the Fuse?
So more music. I've kind of been creating for the past couple of years and working on tracks. So I've got quite a few in the bag. Yeah, it's been really exciting, like just chatting through stuff with New State. No dates yet I can tell you of. But yeah, that's really great. And I think you're going to start to see sound take shape. I think it's going to make more sense what Ruth Royall sounds like, which is great because it's it's been incredible working with all the artists that I work with. I'm so lucky to work with them all. But the one thing that happens is you ping pong between everyone else's act and nobody knows what you do. And I think everyone thought I was going to make Liquid. I was like, oh cool, so you can do like a Liquid single, and I was like, no, I'm gonna make jungle music. But it's not just jungle, it's kind of like breaksy sort of, and it's the real kind of like soul influence in everything. So that I'm really excited about that, and that's kind of something that I'm looking forward to showing everyone. And then I've got some more shows coming up. I'm playing a Rampage.
Wow,
in November, which is really exciting. And then I've got some shows playing the Hospitality in the Woods. I love all the hospital family, all my hospital crew. Like, they've been so supportive with everything, and like my solvent family and everything. So that's been really lovely to sort of have that running through everything. Big up the hospital solvent crew. And yeah, Tokyo World playing. So yeah, lots of shows, which is great. Lots of music, and I'm actually into making like the next batch of music now. So that's the way music works. You tend to make it like a year before, and then it goes out.
Brilliant. Yeah. Really, really exciting. So we're going to sign up with one more thing. I started with what lights your fuse. What totally dampened your fuse, like completely defuses your fuse, like in life, in music, or anything like that?
Probably people explaining my job to me.
Oh, wow.
Like all the time. Like oh, sorry, my doorbell's just gone off. Probably people, just telling me that how to do my job. Basically, like all the time. It's really weird. It's I think because music is so based on opinion. Everyone has an opinion about it, and because everybody connects to music in a very personal way, you often get like somebody who's never made a tune in their life but listens to music, and it's like, have you ever thought of going on The Voice?
Wow.
No!
Wow.
I think you do really well if you did this. Like, I think you should make pop music, or like I think you should make like what you're just like,
oh, brilliant. Like mansplaining, backseat driving,
it's not even just men.
Experts.
I mean, mansplaining is definitely the term, but you can get a good ladies plain as well going on.
Brilliant. Awesome, Ruth. That's been perfect. It's been really, really cool chatting to you. So yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Cool.
One more thing.